Hi there. I'm Rudy Molinek, and I'm a PhD student in geoscience at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Before I went back to graduate school, though, I was an elementary school teacher at Sussex School in Missoula, Montana. So I'm really excited to be part of this conference and engaged in education even after I've gone back to my own school. So I wanted to take this time to speak about the motivations behind and the outcomes of the 2021 Equinox Storytelling Summit. This event was a true bright spot for me over the last year, and I think my collaborators who are listed here would agree. Before I get started, I want to thank a few organizations for their support with this project. First, Upham Woods Outdoor Learning Center, which is where Justin, Zoe, and Isabel worked. They made this project possible and were a great partner to work with. We'll hear a little bit more about them in a second. I also wanted to thank the university's Center for Culture, History, and Environment and the Center for the Humanities, who both lent financial and logistical support throughout this process. So, as I said, first, I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about Upham Woods and what they do. So they're a field research station and education center associated with the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In 1941, the Upham sisters deeded their land, which was on the scenic Wisconsin River, to the University of Wisconsin under the stipulation that the space be used to help educate young people about the land. Now, thousands of the students from across the state come to Upham Woods each year to get great place-based education, dive deep into nature, learn about the environment, and be inspired towards care and stewardship. The geologist in me also has to point out that the site has a really cool sedimentary structures and rocks like you see here. They're about 500 million years old when an ancient ocean once covered this part of Wisconsin. So the main impetus for this event was that Upham Woods usually has all these kids coming through, but of course, over the last year and a half, a lot of the residential programming had to come to a halt. So this project was a way to help them increase their virtual programming and make sure their mission of environmental education was still being fulfilled to their greatest capacity. We asked people, for the event, we asked people to, from all over Wisconsin, all ages, there were no limitations other than the geographic ones of the state, to make 10 observations of something natural near where they lived. And this was wide open because we wanted it to be as accessible as possible, recognizing that different people have different access to nature. So it could have been a skybox out of your bedroom window or a tree at a local park or something in your yard. Whatever bit of near home nature was inspiring to them. Given the timing of the event, we had a strong theme of late winter, early spring, and the transition between the two. So then we asked that from those 10 observations of natural change, they tell a story, which we also defined very broadly. Again, the accessibility and the openness to all was a key part for us. We received narratives, poems, and illustrations with no text at all. The participants could choose whatever medium suited their strengths to tell their story. We also had an excellent keynote speaker who is Kurt Meiney. He's an environmental historian and biographer of Aldo Leopold, and he read us an essay about the lilac bushes at the end of his road, and he set a great tone for the event. The goal was to help them engage everyone who participated with nature in a way that didn't feel prescribed like the scientific method. We really wanted them to explore their strengths to get into this observational science. So we had 3 theoretical underpinnings that really guided us in creating this event. The underlying motivation and the underlying motivation of a lot of Upham Woods work is to address inequities in STEM education. As many of you know, probably acutely, women and people of color are far less likely to pursue degrees in careers in STEM fields. There are many reasons, which include a lack of representation, so not seeing themselves in STEM professions, a lack of interest in STEM fields and lower quality educational opportunities due to societal inequities, as well as just outright discrimination. Our goal is to use place-based environmental education as a way to help everyone get engaged with nature and hopefully get excited about science through that experience. And place-based techniques have been shown to be effective towards this end. It helps contextualize and personalize the material, as well as allow for different ways of knowing and different senses of cultural validity. And The third tenet here is the power of storytelling for STEM fields. I think this sort of blending of the humanities and STEM doesn't get blended often enough. And so Upham Woods has this whole program of scientific storytelling where students make observations and then tell stories of stream flow and ecology. So this is not something that was invented for this event, but it was a cool way to showcase it for the broader community and not just the school groups that get to work with Upham Woods. Storytelling is also great as a mechanism for instructors to deliver content. You can then move outside that traditional curriculum, get students engaged and excited, and it increases accessibility to knowledge, including among underrepresented and oppressed students, because it provides for an opportunity for environmental educators to adapt and innovate and meet this challenge of empowering youth to engage in STEM curricula and also engage in the community's ecosystems from where they live. So from this, we receive stories from all over the state of Wisconsin. And I think our youngest story, who drew the image of the fairy tree outside her house, that's in the upper right-hand corner. Sorry about the low contrast there, but she drew the image. She's got the fairy tree and there's some cardinals singing in the tree, snow melting on the sidewalk. She was 10 years old. So she was our youngest. And we also had storytellers in their 50s. So I think really succeeded in bringing in a diverse set of ages here. And in the other photographs, these go along with some poems I'm going to share on the next slide. But those are daffodils in the upper left, and on the bottom, a dock on the Fox River near Appleton, Wisconsin. So these are the poems that accompany those two images. And I know this is a ton of text. But since this is a recorded presentation, feel free to pause here and read through. I mean, I think they're excellent. In the green boxes at the bottom are some notes that the storytellers made, detailing the observations of nature that they made to inspire their poetry. So we're seeing that connection here between the stories and the storytelling, and then the observation of change in nature over time. So we're getting the humanities of the storytelling, and then that STEM of observational science. And I really think that the best way to describe the outcomes of the Storytelling Summit is to let participants speak for themselves. So these correspond to the 3 stories I've shared so far, and were comments that we got back in a feedback form. And I think there's a really cool overall theme of growing connection to place and seeing self-image as a scientist. So in this first one, I love what the storyteller wrote here. This change in perspective may reflect a change in the way I view myself. I've only recently begun to think of myself as a scientist. And I had an opportunity to talk with this storyteller. And this was part of a larger theme in her life of seeing herself as a scientist. But she really appreciated the Storytelling Summit as a way to also get to engage that poetic side of her. And she's really quite a good poet. So I think this was really cool for helping her out there and building that self-image and seeing herself as a scientist. With the doc, this storyteller, this was a place that she went often, but after making these careful observations, which is something she hadn't done before, she felt her connection to this place that she was already connected to grow even stronger, which is really cool. And then our young storyteller with the fairy tree, she already knew quite a bit about this tree, but she definitely learned more than she expected. I think that this quote is just great. And she was excited about the fact that she could observe these tiny changes that she'd never noticed before. And hopefully she'll continue to make these kinds of observations as she grows and learns. So these digital visual storytelling events do present an opportunity to promote place attachment and STEM education outcomes, not just in the schoolyard or on field trips, but meaningfully in the backyard or near home. We really leveraged the digital technology here to increase these access to the place-based learning. So thanks for listening to this bright spot. It was a bright spot for me. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about it. You can contact me here at this email, and then the contact info for Upham Woods is on their website. You can also just Google Upham Woods. Thanks so much, and I hope you enjoy this conference.